Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me today, not only do we have Philadelphia's number one hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor, but we also have Broad Street Hockey's own Kelly Henkel. What's going on today, fam?
Howdy.
Hello.
So it's Jamie Drysdale season review day, as I'm trying to make sure. How am I in this frame here? Well, that's as far as I can just move myself. There we go. All right.
There we go.
Jamie Drysdale. I could just move my body. Yeah. It's Jamie Drysdale season review day. Charlie wrote the article. I think it dropped. What was it? Friday, Charlie? The Jamie Drysdale article dropped for diehards only. And today maybe it was Monday. I don't remember.
Monday, I think.
I think it was Tuesday. Today's Thursday. I think it was Tuesday.
What are days? Summer, whatever. Anyway, if you're a diehard, you can read Charlie's article on Jamie Drysdale and all of the season reviews he has up so far. We're going to get to that today. But first, there's a new list to talk about. As Hank says in the flyby every day, the summer is for lists. And the NHL Network was kind enough to grace us with the top 20 wingers right now. And coming in at number 20 is our guy, Travis Konecny, of the brand new 8-year contract. Comes in right behind Alex Ovechkin. A few notable names left off the list: Jesper Bratt, Chris Kreider, Brock Besser, Mark Stone, among others. Matt Barzal, people were like, he did switch to wing. Maybe he should be on there.
Yeah, that's true.
It looks like a fairly I don't have a ton of problem with the list. I think some people took exception to Alex Ovechkin, and it's like, listen, man, he's going to be on the list. I don't know what to tell you. Like, until he drops dead, he's out there. And he did have a really good second half of the season. But just overall thoughts on the list, then maybe we'll get into TK.
I think the haters are in shambles, which always makes me happy. It's just one of those things. I feel like we have a tendency as Flyers fans to both overvalue and undervalue like every single player on our team, just based on like the weather and the wind and things like that. And I think that since Travis Konecny was due a big contract that a lot of people didn't want to give him, a lot of Flyers fans just decided that he sucked, which he doesn't. And so it's kind of nice every now and again to just have like a little bit of like outside reinforcement that like, yes, this good player on your team is actually good. In case you forgot.
It's actually good.
So you know. Yeah. Everybody else thinks so too. It's not just us.
And I guess it is a nice way to just encapsulate, yes, he's a first line winger. Like, if he's the best player on your team, if he's driving line one, no, that's not good. But he is a first line winger. Like, hopefully he's playing on the second line for us at some point, because Matvei Michkov is that goddamn good, and we fill out our top six in a way that can compete with the other Stanley Cup contenders. But based on production, based on league-wide perception, any metric you want, he's a first-line winger.
Yeah.
No, I do think so. Whether he should be ranked 20th, I think this is the right range for Konecny.
Yeah.
Whether he should be 20th or 23rd or 18th, I think you can have a reasonable conversation, but this is the right range. I suspect that he got a little bit of a list boost because he got the contract, because suddenly everyone, not just in Philadelphia, but everyone in the hockey world had to engage with the concept of Travis Konecny in a way that they didn't have to with like a Mark Stone. You know, Konecny was a topic of conversation this summer, so people were able to look at him that aren't in Philadelphia and say, yeah, he's a good player. I don't know if he ranks 20th if he doesn't get that contract, because I just don't think he's on the minds of national people in the same way that he is always on the minds of Flyers fans, because he's the biggest guy. So makes sense other, but he very much deserves to be in this range, in this like 18 to 25 range. That feels right for Konecny. And I agree with Kelly that one of the things that was nice about seeing him on this list was less about like, oh yeah, this validates the fact that, you know, that he is a great player, whatever. It is nice because sometimes you hear from the the Travis Konechny detractors in the Flyers fan base. I see this on Twitter quite a lot from people I mentioned, that the only reason why you think that Travis Konechny's good is because he's a Flyer. He's actually not that good. If he was on any other team, he wouldn't be that good. You wouldn't think he was that good. And it is nice to have outside validation that, like, no, it's not just that because we watch Travis Konechny, we think he's good. There are lots and lots of other people who are just general hockey observers who agree that Travis Konechny is actually a first-line caliber winger. So, no, it's not that we are hopelessly biased because, we got the orange tinted glasses on. Like, no, national people think he's good too. You know why? Because objectively speaking, he is actually very good.
Yeah, that's I do like the idea, like, everyone had to engage with the idea of Travis Konechny, like, especially the time of year he signed the contract. If you do any semblance of hockey content, it's like, oh man, here's like a third of the show. What the hell else are we gonna do? You know? So
Exactly.
they all had to at some point, like, bring up Travis Konechny's hockey reference and be like, yeah, all right. I realize I realize scoring is up and like 50, 60 points, 30 goals is not what it was a few years ago. But at what point did back-to-back 30-goal seasons become like, oh yeah, he's not that good? Like, it's scoring goals is the only, our whole tenure as Flyers fans, like, they just need someone who can put the fucking puck in the net. Is he just scoring 50? No. But give him a center and he's like a 40-goal scorer probably. He's doing this with nobody on his line. Like, I've been like, I don't think it's the best idea in the world to re-sign Travis Konechny for 8 years. Rebuild. I want the mystery box. Like, give me, maybe it'll be a Konechny, you know? But that doesn't take, like, that's just what the timeline is in my head. I recognize he's a very good player. That's part of why I wanted to trade him, so that they could get good stuff in return that maybe is the same age as Cam York, you know? That's just my thought process here. But I was happy to see he made the list, whether, like Charlie said, he's 18, he's 23. He's in this range. Right, like, this is very much, Travis Konechny is, if not a top 20, well within the top 25 wingers, I would say, like, easily.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the list before we do the other fun stuff today? The Jamie Drysdale doom and gloom.
Really? Are people really mad that Ovi's on the list? Like,
people are just like, you know, based on the guys they left off, maybe he can. Like, he's just not that anymore, but I don't know, man. Scoring
he's
a lot
Alex
of goals.
Ovechkin. Like,
Yeah.
if you put together a list of the top 20 centers in the league, Sidney Crosby's going to be on it until he retires. Doesn't matter what he does, and that's kind of how it should be. Like,
no, like, if
Alex Ovechkin.
If Crosby were to get hurt and miss all of next season, the list going into the following season, he should be on it still. Like,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
these guys, like, they just are this way. Cooch, I thought maybe
Alex Ovechkin, like, he might break the goal record next season. It is possible. Okay, like, this is a guy who very well could by this time next year, we are talking about him as the guy who has scored the most goals in NHL history. Like, he's going to be on a top 20 wingers list. It's just the fact. It's just reality. Sorry.
He would he'd already have it and now be lapping the field if not for his entire rookie year was locked out, a short season lockout in 13, and 2 COVID shortened seasons. Like, he'd already have it. He needs 40 goals. You telling me in basically 2 full seasons that he's missed from no fault of his own, he wouldn't score 40? Like, come on. So, Kucherov at 1 seems right to me. I was like, maybe Kachuk's a little high, but when you look at the playoffs, it's like, can you overrate this guy? It's like
people are obsessed with him.
They are very much obsessed with him.
He is the guy.
He's the platonic ideal of what hockey men want hockey players to be.
Yeah, he is.
To be fair, in this particular case, are they wrong? I'm not sure they're wrong.
He's a super fun player. I'm just saying, like he plays big, he plays physical, he goes to the net, he chirps, like he does all the things that like make hockey people just like jump up and down. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's not not great. He is great, but he's great. Like David Pastrnak is an awesome player, and I think you could make a case that David Pastrnak is a better player than Matthew Tkachuk. David Pastrnak does not play the way that hockey men, which every player played.
And he just
Matthew
simply
Tkachuk does.
and it's just simply not like at some point, if the only thing that ever matters is winning the cup or not, like you kind of got to put a little bit of stock into the dude who just won the East twice and walked away with the cup this past summer. Like it did happen. And that playoff performance 2 years ago when they lost in the final, that was very special. Like he just kept scoring big goals.
Yeah.
He was absolutely amazing in that one. A little bit more of a team effort this year, I thought, but it's still like he's Matt Tkachuk. He is like the straw that stirs the drink over there. As much as everyone loves Barkov and he finally gets his recognition and everything, like it's Tkachuk. Yeah, so that's that list. I thought it was fine. Honestly, we've done a bunch of lists, like looked at some this year and feel like the consensus has been pretty good. Like there's not the lists haven't been overly hot takey, at least the ones that I've seen. Like if it's, oh yeah, Alex Ovechkin at 19, he should be 26. Like, okay, well he's Alex Ovechkin, so
bonus points for being Alex.
He gets 10 points. You know, like it's he's that guy. I'm actually pretty pleased. I was like, okay, I'm cool with this.
It's a reasonable list.
I liked the arguments over Robertson. Some people going, actually, he should be like 2 or 3, and other people going, you're crazy, he should be 10. Like there was a lot of back and forth on Robertson, but that was pretty much it. It was a pretty, yeah, okay, that's a good list.
It's a good list.
All right, let's get to the Jamie Drysdale stuff now. But before we do that, I got to tell you about the season that's coming up. We know football just around the corner, hockey and basketball starting shortly after. And what does that mean? That means fall allergies. That's right. And our friends at Rite Aid have you covered to take care of your fall allergy symptoms. When do they occur? Fall allergies can begin as early as August and last into November. I know last couple days for me, I've had a little bit of watery eyes. I think maybe it's getting started. What causes the fall allergies? It can be the main culprits like ragweed and mold, or other allergens like sagebrush, tumbleweed, and pigweed, plus dust mites and pet dander and fur. Hey, if your dog or cat, whatever, has allergies, guess what? They're tracking stuff in. Maybe they're going to infect you as well with some of those things. How can you take care of it? Because there is nothing more annoying than allergies. Well, the first thing you can do, sign up for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. You can also use a dehumidifier. Dust mites and mold thrive in humid environments, and a dehumidifier helps take the moisture out of the air so that these allergens can't grow. You should also shower frequently. Probably great advice no matter your allergy situation. But you got to wash those all the pollen and all that crap off you as well. Check the pollen counts. Keep your windows closed and use your air conditioner when it's necessary. And do something like wear a protective mask when gardening. I know I have a lot of yard work to do to get ready for the fall. You drive down my road, you'll see me wearing a mask. If that's not enough, these little precautions you can take, check out the over-the-counter options available at your local Rite Aid. Try a nasal rinse to help flush out your nasal passages. And when symptoms are flaring or you know that pollen counts are high, try antihistamines such as loratadine and cetrizine, all available at Rite Aid. And 1 to 2 weeks before pollen allergies are expected to be high, try nasal corticosteroids, also available over the counter at Rite Aid. If you still have questions, still not enough relief, ask a Rite Aid pharmacist if a different type of allergy medication, like a decongestant, might be necessary. You can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on way to get relief during allergy season. And while we're here, let's talk. It's funny transition now. Let's talk about Lucy Nicotine. That's right. I've been telling you about Lucy Nicotine products for a few months now. I am a big fan of the pouches. First thing you got to know, it's 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco free. And Lucy isn't like every other nicotine pouch company. It's not owned by Big Tobacco. They're kind of like the mom and pop shop of pouches. That's pretty cool, right? So, supporting a smaller business rather than, those big tobacco companies that might not be the best. Pouches come in a variety of strengths from 4 to 6 all the way up to 12 milligrams. And like Shane Gillis says, those 12s, those Lucy 12s, they'll put you on the moon, my friends. And the flavors, unique variety of flavors, apple ice, wintergreen, mango. I've been a fan of all of it. You got to check out the variety pack that you can get on lucy.co. You can try all the different flavors, find out what's best for you. And if you're not a pouch guy or gal, Lucy Gum is available in 2, 4, or 6 milligram doses. So set yourself up with a subscription and have Lucy delivered straight to your door. Let's level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/flyers and use promo code FLYERS to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use code FLYERS to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. All right, Jamie Drysdale time. Drysdale, of course, came over to the team in January under totally normal circumstances. Probably nothing really to talk about or remember from the Jamie Drysdale acquisition. Traded for little-known prospect Cutter Gauthier, Billy Goat, as some may refer to him. And that's the first thing I want to ask about. So this season, the Calder Trophy could come down to Cutter versus Mishkov. And I think we'll always kind of compare those two because, man, they could have been like line mates on this team. They're both rookie forwards the same year. But is this year going to be more about Michkov versus Cutter or Drysdale versus Cutter, do you think?
I think for Flyers fans, it's always going to be Cutter versus Drysdale. I think that we're constantly going to be, particularly if Drysdale ends up just average and Gauthier ends up really good, there's going to be a sect of the fan base that never stops talking about it. Which is silly because there was nothing the Flyers could. I don't want to relitigate this, but in my mind, there was nothing the Flyers could have done about this, and they made the best of a shit situation. And this is what it ended up as, and so now we're gonna make the best of it. It is what it is. I don't know that we need to be talking about any of them as like in comparison to each other. Like, I would like to never talk about William Gauthier ever again. But that's obviously not going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen. We're going to have to talk about him forever, especially if he's good, which is going to be really annoying. But yeah, it's always going to be, I think, for Flyers fans, Gauthier versus Drysdale. I think in the national media, if both of these guys end up good, it's going to be Michkov versus Gauthier, because there's an easy narrative there as well. If you're a national hockey writer, you can be, both of them could have been Flyers and now one of them's good. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be like a whole thing. But Flyers fans are always going to be holding Drysdale up to see how Danny did in the return for shithead.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I think that's the key. When you're talking about Michkov versus Gauthier, I think that's really only going to matter this season. And it only will matter this season if the two of them are battling for the Calder. Like, that will be a narrative for this year because there's a trophy on the line. Both the guys are rookies. Is an easy comparison. I think once you get past this season, I don't think that comparison is going to matter as much because they're not really, I mean, I guess in theory, everyone is going head to head with everyone else. That is the nature of sports. Yeah. But there's nothing that's going to have people normally comparing Matvei Michkov playing in Philadelphia to Cutter Gauthier playing in Anaheim. It just could be a thing this year if they're both real good and they are battling for the Calder. Whereas the Gauthier versus Drysdale thing is going to go on forever. And I don't even necessarily think it has less to do with the players. And I think, Kelly, you nailed it at the end of your last thing about Danny. It more has to do with Danny because, yes, the Flyers were going to have to trade Gauthier most likely. The idea that they were going to be able to just call his bluff and eventually he was going to say, I changed my mind, I want to be a Flyer. highly unlikely, especially if it got out and then Flyers fans spent 6 months dropping in his DMs telling him he was a piece of shit for not wanting to be a Flyer. Like, yeah, then there's no way he's coming to Philadelphia. So they were going to have to trade him. The thing is, they didn't necessarily have to trade him for Drysdale. And that's why it's going to remain a thing. Not necessarily because it's like, well, who's better? Although that will be part of it. But it's more of the Flyers specifically wanted Drysdale because Danny Briere's front office believed in Drysdale's upside and believed that he was a guy worth targeting. Like, the Flyers probably could have come up with some type of package for a prospect who isn't in the NHL, or just a package of picks or whatever, or a player like Marco Rossi who was supposedly on the table. Instead, they were like, Jamie Drysdale's the guy we want. We want to improve our defense. We think he brings an element, and we also think he has the kind of upside that can be the kind of high-end impact talent that we're saying the Flyers need. Can he be that? I don't know. I do not know. But if he is that, suddenly Gauthier isn't that big of a deal. Because it's like, well, look at Jamie Drysdale. He's awesome. If he stinks, then it's going to be talked about constantly. And if he's just okay and Gauthier is awesome, it's still going to be talked about constantly, because it's going to be like, well, maybe Danny should have picked a better player to try to get in the Gauthier trade than Drysdale. It's going to be, I think, a referendum a little bit on Briere and his front office's ability to evaluate talent, more so than like, well, who's better? Like, that to me is going to be the bigger story.
Oh, absolutely. And we've said several times, like, Matvei Michkov is the crown jewel of the Danny Briere tenure, especially to this point. Maybe make some crazy trade. Maybe they draft someone else. Something happens. But Michkov is the guy that's going to define how Danny's tenure goes. That said, Drysdale's number 2, right? And it's like maybe closer
right
than
now
we thought about, like, to this point, because, man, this was a huge deal. And maybe the seeds of this, the discontent, were sowed during the Fletcher tenure, and then during all the upheaval, that's when the miscommunications happened. We've been through this a bunch of times. And then, the transition to Danny, and then all this is going on, and whatever happened. Cutter Gauthier says, I'm done. Trade him. The return of Jamie Drysdale is Danny's biggest move. I mean, yes, drafting Michkov, big deal. But he fell to you. Like, you were drafting at 7 and you took him at 7. You didn't have to do a whole lot of labor to get to that end point. You just had to wait. They did try to trade up. Turns out they didn't have to. This is his defining moment. Do you think this year, like, what is people's confidence level going to be in Danny Briere if Jamie Drysdale is just okay this year?
I'm not even going to go there. Like, do I think it's possible Jamie Drysdale could be just okay? Sure. Do I think it's possible Jamie Drysdale could be real good? Sure. I also think it's possible Jamie Drysdale could be real bad. So like I think there's a lot of possibilities here. And I count myself as I wouldn't even say I would count myself as like a Jamie Drysdale defender, although I probably come off as one because I just think he takes a lot of undeserved shit from people who have just decided he's never going to be healthy. He sucks. He's bad because they watched him play 24 games playing through a sports hernia, joining a new team, coming off a year where he missed an entire season. Like, I think deciding with certainty that Jamie Drysdale stinks is unbelievably stupid. But I am not saying that it is impossible that he just isn't good. That is an option. Like, I think my general view of Drysdale, and this is my view of him right now, is that it's okay for us to say that we just don't know yet. Like, and I think there is a feeling in sports punditry, and there's a feeling not necessarily in fandom, because like if you're a fan and you want to just like spout off on, having a conversation with your buddy at the bar or whatever, or at a family party, like whatever, that's cool. But something to do with Twitter, people just don't seem to be willing to be like, well, let's wait and see. It's like, I'm on Twitter, so I have to have an opinion, because if I don't have an opinion, what's the point of me being on Twitter? And that opinion has to be like, this guy is either great or he stinks, and there's no middle ground. That's what I hate about Twitter. I hate the lack of nuance. In this situation, I just think that like, we don't know. We don't know what Jamie Drysdale is going to be. And that's why this year is going to be so fascinating. But like you're saying, what if Jamie Drysdale is just good? Bill, I think if Jamie Drysdale is just good this year, that is a great thing because he's only 22 going on 23. And if he is good, that would be the first year in his NHL career that he was good. And that would show me a guy who's on a significant upward trajectory. And then I'm thinking maybe the following year, he could be great. That would be awesome to me. And if people come away with a year where Jamie Drysdale is good, not great, but good, and they're like, this just shows how dumb Danny Briere is, I'm like, I don't know. This shows me that he might have made the right move because he's way better now than he was his first 3 years as a team, as a player. So I guess I disagree with that framing because to me, if Drysdale's good, that is an awesome outcome because there are very real plausible outcomes where Jamie Drysdale stinks because thus far in his NHL career, every time he's played by the numbers, he's stunk.
And that leads me to one of my favorite sentences Charlie O'Connor has ever written. And I read a lot of his stuff. He's very good. But this was just such an easy, poignant sentence. At even strength in particular, Drysdale has performed terribly to this point in his career.
It's true. Yes. Not been good.
Yeah. You always try to leave room for nuance. You never attempt to like come off as, well, this is definite. Like you're very much like you always try to leave room for all possibilities because you never want to come off as I know better than everyone. That is one of the most straightforward sentences I have ever read that you have written because it's objective. Like, look at the numbers. He has stunk. And man, that is, I think so many people have focused on the injury aspect. I don't want to get to that as well because you have a very interesting take on that. And I think Bryn made a graphic for it too. The injury thing, I think people have focused on so much because it's been such an issue. He missed, all but 8 games the 1 year and he doesn't play. He has the injury. He has no training camp. He comes back. He gets hurt right away. And then the Flyers trade for him. He gets hurt a couple of games into that. Like, we focus so much on the injuries. It's like, oh, well, if he's healthy, he'll be fine. Maybe? There's a lot. He has some tools. Absolutely, the dude has some tools.
There's a lot of really good tools. Yeah.
But to this point, he has not put them together yet. And that could very much be a part of why, Keith Jones looked at me and you, Charlie, and was like, this dude should not have been in the NHL when he was in the NHL. Like, we think he was developed wrong. And now it's up to them to get the most out of whatever they can of this still 22-year-old defenseman after the first 3.5 years of his NHL career were handled incorrectly according to the people who sought to trade for him. Yeah, and this is the development process. Like, Charlie, you have this theory about him being injury prone where you just don't kind of buy it. And it's more so about if you just look at the games he's missed, but when you look at how he has been developed, it's shit, man.
Yeah, it's not great.
Well, he had the misfortune of being drafted at a really bad time, not just for hockey players, but really for the world. So he was drafted in 2020. Obviously, 2020 was the year from hell. So that's the remote draft, whatever. So he gets drafted in 2020. His draft year, he doesn't finish because obviously everything stops in March. Draft plus 1 year, you look at his stats and you're like, oh, he didn't play that much in his draft plus 1 year. You kind of forget, no one really did. He played in 38 games that year in the AHL and the NHL. He should have been in the OHL, but the OHL never played. It never got started again. There were no OHL games that year. So he gets rushed to the AHL and the NHL because he's on a team that I guess was excited because he was playing well in the AHL. I was like, well, let's put him in the NHL. And reality, probably shouldn't have been there. So draft plus 1 season, doesn't play in his age-appropriate league, gets rushed to the pro game. Draft plus 2 season, he plays 81 games, misses only 1 game. Super injury prone, right? Missed 1 game in his rookie year. It's on a team that's a mess. The Ducks are terrible. They're a disaster. They had 3 GMs that season. If you I put that in my article.
Yeah.
his draft plus 3 season. This is his second year. He loses pretty much the entire season due to injury. He plays, I believe, in 8 games before he hurts his shoulder, has labrum surgery, misses the season. So that's when the injury concerns start up. Then his draft plus 4 season, he has a weird thing where he ends up in something of a contract holdout situation. He signs the contract. I think it was about like a week before the season starts. I have to wonder if maybe he wasn't fully conditioned, because he goes in for game 1. That's like 8 days after he signs the contract, after not participating really in camp. And he immediately has a sports hernia, plays through that all year, gets traded to a new team, re-injures his shoulder, not to the point where he needs surgery, but does have to sit out some time with the Flyers. And then there's also the fact that he's coming back from a season where he didn't play. So that almost certainly had a negative impact on his development and also just on him being comfortable on the ice. So thus far, his developmental process, his 4 seasons post-draft, have been kind of a shit show. And I think it is reasonable to theorize that to this point, that has had a negative impact on the player that he is to this point. The Flyers are betting that they can now develop him properly. And he's not old. He's 22. He'll be 23, I believe, in January. He's not old. They just fixed, to a degree, obviously they didn't fix him to the point where he's an all-star. They fixed Rasmus Ristolainen, who was like 27, 28.
Yeah.
And presumably it's a lot easier to fix a 22-year-old than to fix a guy who's played in the league for like nearly a decade. So they believe they can fix Drysdale. Are they right? I don't know. But I think it is, you can't tell the story of Jamie Drysdale's career without acknowledging that the first 4 years of his career, he's dealt with a lot of shit that it makes sense that it would mess him up.
And this is, I think we talked about this last week. Like, okay, you look at that graphic. In reality, in life, in the calendar, it's his draft plus 4 year. But like, really, I feel like we should be treating it like draft plus 2, based on like all of the shit that happened, like the pandemic stuff, the shortened seasons, like all of that. Like, you can't just hand wave that away and act like this is the same developmental trajectory that you would have had with a guy drafted in 2004 in 2008.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not the same. And
I
think it's hard for us to like to give that kind of break to these players, because no one ever wants to give these guys a break. Like, they're professional athletes. You want them to perform the way that they're supposed to perform. I think it's reasonable to expect that you could, quote unquote, fix a guy that for all intents and purposes is in the stage of his development that I think arguably you could say someone who was drafted 2 years ago in a normal situation would be. Like, it's not, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Like, it doesn't seem like a far-fetched idea to me to think that based on that chunk of time that he's had as a professional hockey player, it's just not been that much time. It's not been that many physical games played. Like, whatever's wrong with him, it's not that ingrained. Like you said, it's not Risto. Like, he hasn't been doing the bad things for 10 years like Risto was when we got him, and still somehow we're able to like unteach some of the shitty things that he was doing. It just, I feel like it's odd to me that people are willing to be so pessimistic about this, given I feel like logically the likelihood is that you could make him better than worse. I don't know. It just seems like logical to me. Like, if you think the tools are there, if you think that he has what it takes to turn into X player, like, you can't just pretend that that doesn't exist. Like, he hasn't had the opportunity to be played. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm rambling.
Yeah.
But I just think that, like, the logical way to look at this, I feel like, is as a positive outcome is more likely than not.
And that's,
I don't even think it's necessarily, I don't even necessarily has to be a positive outcome. I just think it the way I look at Jamie Drysdale is I don't know. But I do think there's enough here that has me think that, like, he's not destined to suck. And he's also not destined to always be injured, which is the other thing you hear constantly.
That's
like
silly.
maybe he's injury prone. Maybe. It's possible. It's possible. And maybe he's not even that he's injury prone. Maybe it's that he had the shoulder surgery and now that shoulder is always going to be weak for the rest of his career. I guess that's possible. Like, I can't rule that out. However, we're not talking about a guy who has been injured every year of his career. And I talk about this in the piece. His draft year, or actually, it wasn't even his draft year. It was the year before his draft year. His first year in the OHL, he appeared in 92.6% of possible games. His draft year, he appeared in 91% of possible games. The year after his draft year, he appeared in 90.5% of possible games. And then his first full NHL season, he appeared in 98.8% of possible games. His overall availability rate from the time he started his OHL career through his draft plus 2 season, that's 4 seasons, is about 94% availability, which is pretty good. So we're not talking about a guy who every year got hurt and missed a lot of time. We're talking about a guy who was almost always available. Then in his draft plus 3 season, 2 seasons ago, he hurt his shoulder. He had shoulder surgery. Okay, that's not great. He missed a year. It's bad. And then last year, it was a year from hell. He gets hurt first game of the year, gets traded. He's coming back from missing a season. Then he re-injures his shoulder. So really what we're talking about are 2 seasons where he dealt with injury. Is it possible that is a harbinger of what is to come, and he is always going to do those types of seasons? Like, he's going to have another season where he misses half the year. Is that going to be a thing? It could be. Like, I can't rule that possibility out. But we also shouldn't dismiss out of hand the possibility that he's just gotten really unlucky the last 2 years. Like, that is also very possible. That this is not an injury-prone player. This is a guy who just had bad luck. And then this season, maybe for the next 5 years, he's going to have good luck. And he's barely going to miss any time. It's okay for us to say that we just don't know. That's all I'm asking for us just to say we don't know, and then buy the ticket and take the Jamie Drysdale ride and see what happens.
There you go.
Yeah, and maybe buy a Dry Guy the Fly Guy shirt at PHLYlocker.com. That would be fun. No, I'm willing to kind of wave off the injury stuff because, as Charlie laid out, it's not as crazy as it looks. If you just go to his hockey reference and look at games played, you're like, oh, what the hell? And then with added context, it's like, oh, okay. So it's basically just this past year and the year before he was hurt. Every other year he's been healthy, including going back to the OHL. The development stuff, I'm willing to go, yeah, man, because I think guys drafted between like 2018 and 2022 just didn't have all of the tools at their disposal that everyone else has. Because even like a weird year, like say what could have been Ovechkin's rookie year, like we talked about earlier, loses that to the lockout. He gets to play in the K. Like all those guys like drafted those years, they still get to play in juniors. Yeah. And like, remember Richards and Carter joining the AHL joining the Phantoms for the Calder Cup playoffs? Like there was still hockey to be played. He couldn't play in the OHL, and it was like, all right, shit.
He couldn't leave his house.
Yeah, like, fuck's sake. And like even team meetings and stuff are different. Like the way he's being coached and the way teams are being run, it's all different. So I'm just willing to grant the possibility that those years were kind of just fucked up, and they were for a lot of guys. And we are going to see a bunch of dudes from those, like I think 18 to 22 drafts break out at like 25, 26 rather than 22, 23. I just think that that's a real possibility. That said, the thing that scares me most now, it's not the injuries and all that. It's, is he any good? Like that's really what it comes down to, because he's in the 81 game season. He scored 32 points. All right. Pretty good for a young puck moving defenseman. I'll take that. But every other number Charlie has laid out about this guy, they're not great. What are the actual on-ice concerns about him, Charlie? Because you talked about hockey sense, you talked about playmaking and puck skills. Like, what is it that he's lacking?
Yeah, it's tough to say again, because again, all of this has to be viewed through the lens of the development. He hasn't had ideal development. He wasn't on a good team. He was with an organization that rushed him to the NHL. He wasn't getting good coaching. Like Dallas Eakins got a second shot to be an NHL coach, and he's made it abundantly clear he's not an NHL caliber coach. Like it was not a good situation for him. However, yeah, there are definitely concerns that I have about Jamie Drysdale. The main one, and this is probably the biggest one I have. especially based on what I saw from him when he joined the Flyers. So I didn't watch a ton of his play in Anaheim. I'm not going to pretend that I did. When Drysdale got drafted, his big plus as a player was how well he thought the game. That was what you go back and you read all the scouting reports. His two big things were he's a great skater, and he is. You can tell he's a great skater. We saw a limited version of Jamie Drysdale as a Flyer, and everybody who watched him is like, man, he can really skate, especially laterally. And I think now that he's got the sports hernia surgery done, I think the straight line speed is going to come back, and he's going to go back to being a legitimately plus, straight line, your usual skating ability type of thing. And that's going to be cool. So the skating was number one. But the other one was the hockey sense, the hockey IQ, how well he thinks the game. I, at the very least, when watching him with the Flyers, did not see a guy who wowed me in terms of hockey sense. I saw a guy who was making a lot of errors in terms of thinking the game, processing the game, especially defensively. And again, part of this is development. He was learning a new defensive system on the fly. You have the Flyers play the Flyers play a zone defense in the defensive zone. Anaheim played a man-to-man, so it's possible that played into it. But when I watched Jamie Drysdale last year, it did not seem like I was watching an especially smart hockey player. And I'm not talking about his off-ice intelligence. I'm just talking about his ability to process the game. And that was viewed as a strength of his. Now, this might just be coaching, and this might be development. This might be something where he's had so many dumb things told him for the first 4 years, and he's lost time in terms of working under smart people, and he's jumped organizations, and he's learning systems. That could be part of it. And that could be something that the Flyers can fix. And then maybe this time next year, we're talking about a guy who does look like a very smart player on the ice. But what I saw last season was not an intelligent hockey player. It was not an intelligent defenseman. His reads weren't good. He wasn't recognizing coverages fast enough. He was letting guys get below him in the defensive zone to score easy tapping goals. He wasn't recognizing the right lanes on the attack. He wasn't pinching the way he necessarily should. Those are things that worry me, because some of that probably can be fixed with good coaching. Hopefully, all of it can be fixed with good coaching. I just worry that some of it may just be the fact that possibly scouts overrated his hockey IQ in the lead up to the draft. Because in these scouting reports, pretty much everybody says, look, Drysdale has puck skills. He's got talent. We're not saying he lacks puck skills, but he's not Cale Makar. He's not going to be dangling through defenses. He doesn't have dynamic puck skills. But he makes up for that by the fact that he just always makes the right decision with the puck. So if suddenly he doesn't have that skill and he doesn't have dynamic puck skills, then it becomes like, okay, so you're just a really good skater. That's it? That's probably a decent third pair defenseman. That's obviously not what the Flyers want. So that's my big fear with Drysdale, is that can he think the game at a high enough level to take advantage of the physical tools that he has? I hope it's just coaching. I hope that he can be turned into the guy we thought he was going into his draft year. I just worry, because if it doesn't work out for him, I think that's going to be the reason.
And I think, if it is the case that maybe his hockey sense was overrated, and we talked about this earlier this week or last week, it's the hardest thing to judge, because you don't know what a guy's being told and you don't know what's going on in his head. But just as an observer, I equate it to hey, Shane Victorino was dumb in the outfield, but he was so fast it didn't matter. He ran in on that ball and he needed to go back, but then he went back and got there because he was so fast. Especially at lower levels, maybe it took Drysdale, a quarter of a second longer than necessary to recognize, but he was so fast, especially laterally, most people couldn't pick up on it. It's oh man, look at how he read that play. It's or he's just so much faster than everyone. He's able to make up for that deficit. And then once you get to the NHL, where it's yeah, man, not everyone's that fast, but everyone's pretty damn fast. Even the bad skaters aren't slow. It's maybe that's where the problem comes in, but we'll see as that goes. We have more Jamie Drysdale to get to in just a second. But first, I got to take a moment to tell you about one of my favorite sponsors here at PHLY, our friends at Coors Light. That's right. Coors Light is a proud sponsor of PHLY Flyers, and between work, social media, the choices life throws our way, it's no wonder we're more worked up than ever. I mean, you should have heard us before the show today. Everyone's wilding out all the time. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn a rained-out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Or after a tough loss, settle scores with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill, then reach for an ice-cold Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. And listen, this team, they give us plenty to be nuts about. We've been doing this a long time together, the three of us, and we're not getting any more relaxed about things. It's getting like, hey, I'm chill. Yeah, we keep getting older, and they keep not winning the Stanley Cup. I'm getting less chill, and that's why sometimes I need to take the step back and choose to chill. And when you make that decision, there's no better way to celebrate than with an ice-cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about injuries, hockey sense, development, whatever it is, you need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, sometimes you just got to chill. Make the most of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY Hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And while we're here, I've been telling you about TrueMark Financial Credit Union for months now, and how one of the biggest pluses of going with a credit union like TrueMark Financial is how much a part of the community that they are. Well, I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you with this event that's coming up, sponsored by TrueMark. It is TrueMark's Pickleball Tournament. TrueMark Financial Care Foundation is hosting a charity pickleball event to raise money for financial education in our local communities. For those of you who were maybe at our PHLY golf outing, you might remember our friends from TrueMark, and this is to benefit their foundation charity. The event is September 7th at the Upper Dublin Sports Center in Ambler, PA, from 1:30 to 5 p.m. It's a round-robin tournament. We'll have a certified pickleball pro on site to overview the game for anyone who's never played before. You don't need any prior experience, and paddles and balls will be available to use for free. The cost to play is $50 to benefit the charity. All players get a swag bag from TrueMark and us here at PHLY. And if you want to get your company involved in a sponsorship and have your logo on display at the event, they're selling a variety of sponsorships from $200 all the way up to $1,000 if you're so interested. And there's going to be some entertainment there beyond the pickleball as well. Even if you don't want to play pickleball, you can still support the event. There's going to be food and beer trucks on site. All right, I'll be there. And a percentage of the proceeds will go to the charity as well. There will be music, cornhole, lawn games, 50-50 raffles, fun prizes, giveaways, all the stuff you've come to expect from a PHLY event, plus the TrueMark Pickleball Tournament. This is going to be absolutely outstanding. I'll be there playing, hanging out. There's going to be a live broadcast from the event. Come spend that Saturday playing pickleball for a good cause, or, just eating and drinking for a good cause while we watch others play. It's a good chance that's what I do. The best part, as a PHLY fan, you get 10% off discount on registration. Just register at TrueMark.com/PHLY Pickleball.
Yo, I've never played pickleball. Why do I feel like I would whip ass at pickleball? Now I want to go to this and try to just destroy everyone at pickleball.
Well, good, Kelly, you're in. Congratulations, yes! You're in.
I'm gonna do it.
All right. I don't remember what we were talking about. What was
Jamie Drysdale?
Jamie Drysdale. Yeah, right. I said the hockey sense thing. So we go from there. The puck skills, he's a very good passer, but beyond that, I don't think anyone's going to confuse him for Cale Makar breaking ankles out there. What about his game makes the Flyers think he could be a top pair defenseman?
Well, I think they love, number one, the skating. I mean, there are few players that skate as well as Jamie Drysdale does. And not just talking about straight line speed. He's a good straight line speed guy. I went back, I looked at the NHL Edge data from his 81 game season, and he was in the 86th to 87th percentile in terms of top speed and in terms of how many, the number of 20 miles per hour plus speed bursts that he's had. So that to me is him healthy. Because last year he was sub 50%. But again, from game one, he was playing through a sports hernia. I'm pretty sure that probably sapped some of his speed. So we never really got to see him at his top speed. He is a legitimately, like, strongly above average straight line skater, and he is a straight up elite lateral skater. So that's number one. That gives you an advantage over pretty much everybody on the ice, just because you're more mobile than everybody else. Number two, the Flyers believe that my concerns about his hockey sense, that is entirely a product of bad development and bad coaching. And they believe that if you give him a good coach, which they believe they have. Number one, they believe they have it in John Tortorella, but especially they believe they have it in Brad Shaw, who has been his direct positional coach since they traded for him, and very much will be working with him closely, I imagine, during camp and into the season. They believe Shaw can tap back into what made him appear to be such a smart player prior to the draft, before the Ducks screwed him up and before he missed the bulk of 2 consecutive seasons due to injury. That's what they think. They think you can get back to him being a smart player who makes all the right decisions and also an elite skater, and then boom, you've got a stone cold lock top 4 defenseman, if not a top pair defenseman. That's what they think.
All right. I am willing to grant them that, because I think the theme of today's show is there's just no way to know. Now, if you are one of these people who has staked your claim, like my ground is he's going to be a star, or my ground is he's going to be a bust, and you end up being right, congratulations. I don't know what you win, but you were right. But honestly, it's not based on
internet points.
It's not based on anything. We just haven't seen this guy, and we especially haven't seen him in this organization healthy, like, at all. Like, he wasn't healthy when they traded for him, and then he got hurt more in a different area. So, like, there's just no sample size to really, like, judge the guy on throughout his career, because there's so many things. He might end up sucking, like Charlie said. That is a distinct possibility. Guys suck sometimes. It happens, even if you're taking 6th in the draft. But as also outlined in your article, Charlie, like, there's a lot of success stories of guys who in their first year or so, like, yeah, man, those numbers, yeah. And then they ended up being good. Guys we really like. Guys we would want on this team right now. Like, Gustav Forsling and fucking Aaron Ekblad. Like, there's a lot of really good names that you put out there. That said, to be a top 4 defenseman, he's going to need a partner. So I went through the Flyers defensive pairs from last season, and they had 16 pairs that played at least 60 minutes together at 5-on-5. Now, an hour of ice time is not a ton throughout an entire season, but, like, Jamie Drysdale didn't play a ton, so I had to, draw the line somewhere. I drew it at an hour because we all know what 60 minutes is. He doesn't appear in any of the. I sorted this. It's by expected goals for percentage. So, like, Mark Stahl and Risto came in at number 1. They also only played 76 minutes together. Like Sanheim, Walker. Like,
there's your top pair right there, boys.
Yeah,
solved.
Not until we get to, like, Sealer and Walker's gone, do we see, like, lines that played a ton together, and they had obviously a lot of success. They were the most effective. They were the most effective pair last year. We do get to, however, on the second page, we see Jamie Drysdale's name for the first time. It's a little bit of surprise.
With Nick Sealer.
With Nick Sealer, they played over 104 minutes together, and they were over 50% by expected goals, 52.42. The problem being the goals for percentage, they got absolutely dump trucked.
Is that good?
And
it's not really good.
They got dump trucked, but it really just comes down to the Montreal game, right? They lose the Montreal game, I think, 9-3. Jamie Drysdale was -6. Nick Sealer was -5. Like, that game right there is what kills their goals for percentage. But by the expected goals, like, that's decent. You can live with 52.5%, right, Charlie?
Yeah, it's not that far behind the 56% that Sealer put up with Walker. And granted, that was in a much larger sample, to be sure. But Number one, I do want to point this out. This guy that does hit that Nick Seeler is pretty good, guys. Like anybody who's a Nick Seeler doubter, at the very least, like he was pretty darn good last year, regardless of who he was with. I don't think he was a product of Sean Walker. He was just a good top four defenseman. With Drysdale, the advanced stats say that pairing has potential, and it makes sense that it does. Like it should have potential. Jamie Drysdale, his style of play is not that dissimilar. His strengths as a player are not that dissimilar to Sean Walker, except that Drysdale, in theory, is an even better skater than Sean Walker. So that pairing should work. It's just, as you said, that Montreal game sticks in everybody's heads because it was that pairing that got absolutely gashed. But yeah, they got killed. They got killed. And it is worth remembering, though, that number one, that was not a healthy Jamie Drysdale during that run. That was a Drysdale who was playing through a sports hernia and had just come back from a shoulder injury. Number two, that was a Drysdale who was still getting used to a new system. You would think that the Drysdale the Flyers are going to get this year, hopefully is 100% healthy, will have more time to digest what he's supposed to be doing in the Flyer system, to spend an entire summer working to hardwire his brain and like, I'm playing a zone defense now, I'm not playing man-to-man. So that shouldn't be my first instinct, is just to cover a guy. You need to cover a space. And I need to learn the responsibilities that come with covering a space. Presumably, this Jamie Drysdale will be better than the Drysdale that we saw last year. You would really hope. And if they get the same Nick Seeler they got from last year, I still think that pairing has potential in a second pair role.
I do as well. And before we go any further, I just have to thank our PHLY diehards. We couldn't do what we do here at PHLY or throughout ALLCITY without our diehards. So thank you very much. And if you're not one, go to allphly.com, sign up to be a diehard so you can read things like Charlie O'Connor's Jamie Drysdale season review. Not to mention, and listen, Drysdale especially horrible in that Montreal game. Let us not forget, though, especially after Drysdale came back from the injury, is when the Flyers were getting, 400 save percentage goaltending. It was by far the worst goaltending in the league. Now, the defense did not help, I don't think, especially in that Montreal game. But if you get a couple more saves, suddenly maybe you're not at 12% goals for percentage. Maybe you're at 40, and it doesn't look like you got absolutely freaking destroyed. It just looks like it's 10 goals and 6 of them went in against you. That makes it a little bit different.
So okay, I want to dig into this whole Seeler Drysdale as the replacement for Walker thing, because for me this is kind of I don't know, something that I've been thinking about it a lot. We talked a lot, I think we did talk a lot about at the end of the season about the idea of the Flyers making a successful defense more by committee and less by having a stud number one who leads the defense, who plays 45 minutes a night. You know what I mean? Rather than modeling it that way, having a defense that works more as a team with the forwards, putting the defense together in a way where it's more about team defense rather than one guy being the guy and everyone falling in line behind the guy. Sean Walker was not some kind of elite talent.
No.
It's Sean fucking Walker. No one thought he was going to be anything when we got him. He happened to be something. And he happened to be something because his particular skill set with the way that John Tortorella structured the defense and the way that they played worked perfectly. If Jamie Drysdale is able to get there, okay, which is not a high bar, it's Sean Walker. He and Nick Seeler can recreate what Seeler and Walker had together. Suddenly the Flyers look like they did in the first half of the season, as far as getting the rush going, the defense being fine, the goaltending being good enough to get it done, all of those things together. Obviously this is not the goal, but what I'm saying is the metric for Jamie Drysdale being a successful part of this team being a stud 25-minute-a-night defenseman, or is it him fitting into the team defense such that as a whole it clicks and works at a high level? How are we judging Jamie Drysdale, like if he doesn't reach number one defenseman Cale Makar status, are we saying like okay, then he's a failure? But if he's able to fit as a cog in a system that works really well together, like isn't that also a success?
Honestly, for me, and maybe my expectations have just been lowered, and I'm one of the people Charlie's talking about that's not giving him the fair shake. And like I'm allowing the possibility that he's like great or he's good top four, whatever. If he makes up a really good third pair with Hunter McDonald in the future, but is the man on the power play, like if him and Mishkov are the thing that makes the power play not just good but excellent, I don't give a shit. But like we'll figure out 5-on-5 with the 5 guys we have ahead of him in the rotation. Like I just need offense. We have all these defensemen who are like, oh yeah, man, they're solid, and they put up no numbers. I need tangible scoring production from Jamie Drysdale. Whether it's at 5-on-5, it's on the power play, that would be great because the power play is like the difference between them making the playoffs and not last year. If they just score on the power play sometimes, this rebuilding team is in the playoffs. He needs to be that guy for me. Now, yeah, maybe they draft someone else and he becomes that guy. Maybe Oliver Bonk's offense actually does translate. Like, who knows? But right now, I look at Jamie Drysdale and go, this is our path to having the kind of defenseman who puts up the kind of numbers you need to win.
So, Kelly, I guess my answer to your question is I really think it just depends on the person. I don't think this is a universal answer. I think everyone is going to have different expectations and different demands for Jamie Drysdale. For me, this season, I do not need to see Jamie Drysdale be a number one 25-minute a night. Like if he is not that, but he is a good second pair defenseman next season, I will be ecstatic. If he just is like, let's say 85 to 90% of what Sean Walker provided the Flyers last year, a good 5-on-5 defenseman who performs well in second pair minutes with Nick Seeler, maybe does some stuff on the power play, and has me coming away from the season thinking that he took a measurable step forward and is now at least a quality NHL defenseman. I will come away from next season feeling really, really good about Jamie Drysdale. However, I still think that over the long term, I still would have higher expectations. Like if Jamie Drysdale next season is just an okay second pair defenseman, I'll be thrilled. If Jamie Drysdale in 4 seasons is still just an okay second pair defenseman, I will be disappointed because the Flyers made him the centerpiece of a deal for their second best prospect, one of the top 5 or top 10 best prospects in hockey. Now, we know it was a unique situation, but the fact of the matter is that they basically turned Cutter Gauthier into Jamie Drysdale. And if Jamie Drysdale at age 27 is just a decent second pair defenseman, I will be disappointed. But if he is just a decent second pair defenseman next season, given the injuries, given the developmental issues, given the fact that I think it's going to take time for him to become the guy he maybe will ultimately become, I will be thrilled with him just being what you described next year. But over the long term, I would be disappointed if that's all he becomes.
Okay.
All right. Before we get to the super chats, because Brenna put in the work, people are like, "Oh, Bill did." I looked up the numbers. She made the graphics. I didn't do shit. I want to get to so we can show the Sanheim and Drysdale pair. The third slide, I believe, Bryn. Yeah, there it is. 90 minutes together. They were by expected goals, but again, got outscored crazy.
Yeah,
and that makes sense. Like if he was playing with Sanheim, he was getting first pair usage, and like. We're talking about like, hey, I'll be thrilled if he's a good second pair defenseman. I do not think he is right now ready to take on first pair matchups, and it makes sense. His numbers weren't that good in that role.
Listen, they were 48%. Like he's not getting killed in terms of like expected goals. It's not you'd want him over 50, but then you get to the Drysdale and York pair on that last slide. 35. 36% expected goals, 33% goals for. They got steamrolled.
So that's not the one.
And so
probably
I realize like the results of that Montreal game greatly skew like who the perfect pairing is for Drysdale, but just when you look at the way they play, it makes sense. You have physical shot blocking guy in Sealer. You have the really fast puck mover in Drysdale. I very much want to see those guys together. And when you talk about Sanheim and York, man, just not nearly enough physicality out there with those guys. And there's your top 4 right now. Like, it'll change in years to come, but like, if he's going to be a top 4 defenseman, he's going to be playing with one of those 3 guys. Well, It looks like it's got to be Sealer.
It's fair.
All right.
Well, I think that's good for the Drysdale conversation. Let's do super chats.
Yeah, now let's get to the super chats. We'll start with Gary B. If Jamie Drysdale hits his ceiling when people like Bonk, Andre Addard, etc., does he become the 1D on the team?
I think it just depends on how good he ultimately ends up being. Like if he tops out as being a decent second pair quality defenseman and then he gets turned into the 1D because they don't have anybody else, like that's bad. And like you could be a number 1 defenseman by usage and not be a number one defenseman by results and talent. Yes. That said, if Drysdale hits his ceiling, his ceiling is probably a 50-point play driving defenseman who can take heavy minutes. And is that a 1D? It's not a 1D in the sense of being like Victor Hedman, but it's a 1D in the sense that he could take 25 minutes and drive play and score a lot of points, and that's cool.
If that's what he is and that's their top defenseman, they better have one hell of a forward core. The other super chat that we have from Cooge says, I saw people judging Danny B for not telling us Drysdale was injured when he came here. Is that a viable thing to judge Danny for? I don't think it is, but people were losing it.
This was a Twitter thing, right?
Hockey.
This was a week-long Twitter thing where people were basically like Danny lies all the time. He's such a liar. That was look, I have a noted lack of patience in dealing with some of the zaniness on Flyers Twitter. That was wild. The week-long meme of Danny's a liar. That was insanity.
It's this idea that okay, we're going to be more transparent. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to tell you this is still fucking hockey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you don't know everything going on with the team as fans, but they are not going to tell you players are hurt. That's never going to happen.
They don't owe you that either.
These are violent drug addicts hunting each other with weapons. They're not going to tell other people that guys are hurt. I don't know how else to put it. I don't want to paint everybody with that brush, but it's what hockey players are.
No, and I don't understand why fans think that they are owed every single bit of information from the front office that runs their favorite sports team.
I'll never understand people's thing with wanting to know. We just need to know about injuries. I want to know when the guy's going to be back. Tell me when he's back. I'm not a fucking doctor. There's nothing I can do.
I'm not wagering, so I'm not interested.
Yeah, tell me when he's going to be back, and that's that. It sounds as if Jamie Drysdale is going to be 100% healthy when camp opens. That's all that matters.
Unless Danny Briere is lying about it.
But because he lies about everything. He lies every day. He's the biggest liar GM in the league.
I want him to lie!
Me too. Lie to everybody.
That's what a good executive does, is fucking lie.
Yeah. Lie to
all right.
everybody, bud.
In for this thing in particular, though, I do want to make my point here. It was pretty clear. I guess maybe people weren't paying enough attention, or maybe they were in their own little world. But the first time we interviewed Jamie Drysdale, he was asked, "Are you healthy?" And he basically said, "I'm healthy enough."
Yeah.
That is essentially what he said. If you were paying even the least bit of attention, you knew that Drysdale was not 100% from the minute they acquired him, because he basically said it. And if you didn't realize that Drysdale wasn't healthy, that's on you for not paying attention. I'm sorry.
All right. And on that, I think we can't close on a higher note. So that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube and never miss a live show. Make sure you hit that reminder bell so they let you know when we go live. And hit that thumbs up thing. Do it right now. I think it's good for us. Do it. Why not? Also, follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. And follow us, follow the podcast. Search PHLY Flyers wherever you get your podcast. That'll do it for me. My name's Bill Matz. That's Kelly Hinkle. That's Charlie O'Connor. We'll be back tomorrow with F Around Friday. Until then, stay loose and sexy, Philly.